Right. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. All right. Okay, what do we got going on today? Today we got going on a lecture. Hopefully you have finished the quiz. I'm going to start looking at the quizzes any second. Probably sometime this afternoon when I'm bored, I will start grading them. And I gave it to you guys first. I'll probably end up uh, I'll start grading yours first. So if you didn't get that in, make sure you do. And if you hand it in after I grade it, make sure you send me that private message. All right. So you have the materials up. This has to do with agriculture, but not super directly. It's a different thing. We're not talking about growing food anymore. Agriculture has other aspects. One of them is growing wood for lumber and for usage for us, right? So we're going to talk about forests a little bit today. So you should have the slides up. There are some things you have to do throughout the slides. So make sure you pay attention to each slide and I'll explain them as we go. I am looking slow to come up here. All right, I'm on the slides. I'm on slide 1. Slide 1 says lesson 8. What role do old growth forests and tree plantations have? All right. So we'll be talking about old growth forests and tree plantations. Slide 2, as usual, is the agenda. Slide 3 is a review from the last thing we talked about, which was integrated pest management. That was included on your quiz, right? So you don't need to review that unless you really, really want to. Slide 4 is more of the review from integrated pest management. Slide 5 is our objective, and there's some stuff on there. So after this lesson, you should be able to explain the significance and inherent value of old growth forests. You should also be able to explain the role of plantations, tree plantations in forestry. All right. There are 2 intro videos. The first intro video I definitely suggest you watch. It's about old growth forests, and it's very, very informational. Will really help you out. The second video is actually just really, really cool. It's about the world's tallest tree, which you're going to see in the next few slides here. So, couple of videos to watch. They're just a few minutes long, so make sure you click on them and check them out. They're actually pretty cool. Slide 6 is talking about that tree, right? So there's a tree called the president. The president is a tree so big that it took 126 frames, 126 pictures to properly capture it. 247 feet tall. It's about 3,000 years old. It is crazy. Um, and you can see the climber at the bottom in this picture. You can see that that is a human walking up to this tree, right? So it's kind of crazy. The next slide, slide 7, shows you a different section of this tree, and it's sort of, can you find the climber? And I can find him, but it's really hard to do. Sort of on the left-hand side of the trunk, on the not the first big branch, but the second little branch. Kind of cool. And then slide 8 shows you the another section of the tree. You're supposed to see if you could see the climber. I didn't look that hard. Oh, actually, I see him right now. He's up on the trunk towards the top there. And then slide 9 shows you the very top of the tree, and it shows you the climber in the orange jacket. You can see him right in the middle of the frame, right? So it's just showing you how big and how old this tree is. Slide 10 shows you an entire slide 10 shows you an entire picture of it and reiterates the fact that it's 247 feet tall. It's more than 3,000 years old. So the president, that is one of the biggest trees you will ever come in contact with. One regret I have so far in life is I have not gotten out to the West Coast, the Pacific Northwest, and California and places like that, because I have not seen these redwood trees. I have not seen these huge, massive trees, right? We have forests and we have regular trees around here, and they're beautiful. But I really want to go to a park where you have these trees where it literally takes you like a minute to walk around the trunk because it's so big, right? There's actually a famous photo of a tree that's so large they cut a bridge in it. Now, they did this a long time ago before we were nice to trees. They cut a big, huge hole in the bottom of it. You can actually drive your car through the tree trunk. That's how big it is. So that's kind of cool. Those are all something called old growth forests. Obviously, takes a damn long time for something that large to grow, right? Um, so next slide 11. Here's where we get into it. So all those slides were just sort of informational. Check it out. There's a tree, blah, 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 right? So slide 11 says, what role do old growth forests and tree plantations have? Now you're looking at something, you're looking at a forest, you're looking at the succession of a forest. That's a word we used back in the day, right? With primary and secondary succession and all that, right? So this is the succession, their stages of forests. And it all depends on where you are. And some forests don't go the whole, this long, and some trees aren't as big as we just saw with the president. Um, but typically, this is the way it goes, right? 1 year, 1 to 15 years, you have. I can't really see because I didn't make it larger. Maybe I'll just extend it for a second here. All right. So you see 1 to 15 years. Come on, you slow thing. You have bare soil, you have herbs growing through the ground, little grasses, things like that, right? Around year 15, you have shrubs and you have seedlings. So you have some a little bit bigger. Then you go to around year 30 and you see saplings, right? Saplings are little trees, and you see shrubs. So you actually see growth, right? 60 to 100 years, you see a young forest turning into a mature forest, right? This is kind of what, if you go hiking around here, any place I go hiking, if you go hiking anywhere in New Jersey, stuff like that, this is kind of the size of the trees that you will see. 60 to 100 years doesn't mean that they haven't been there that long. Some trees can be around for 1,000 years, but still not grow to the size that we just saw with the president. So it all depends on what kind of tree it is and where it is and blah, blah, blah. So don't think about the size of the tree marking its age. It's basically just its age, and different trees grow to different sizes. All right. So 60 to 100 years, you're going from a young to a mature forest, right? And then you have 200 plus years. So 200 years or more, 500, 750, 3,000 you saw, that is old growth. That is known as an old growth forest. And you can see the differences in these pictures, right? So we're sort of looking at old growth forests. Slide 12, what I want you to do there, you can see in the speaker notes, is to link a picture of an old growth ecosystem here. So just link down at the bottom there. Slide 13 asks you to link a map of an old growth forest here. So where can you find old growth forests, right? So a link to an image of a worldwide map that shows old growth forests would be cool, or at least one section of where you can find an old growth forest. All right. Slide 14. All right. So what happens? So old growth forests, why they're important, and what this doesn't mention is old growth forests, the wood is typically used for lumber. All right. So you're not going to go into an immature forest and cut down saplings. That's not going to make enough wood for your purposes. So the older the forest, well, I won't go there, but an old growth forest will have trees that are big enough and suitable enough for cutting down and using as lumber, something that we've been doing for hundreds and hundreds of years. And we know that it's not the best thing to do, but we do know that it's necessary, right? So the thing with the old growth forests, if you cut down old growth forests, they will naturally restart, right? And they'll form again, but it has to go through all of those stages of succession we've seen, right? It doesn't just pop back up as old growth. If you knock down an old growth forest that had been there for 750 years, it's going to take another 750 years for this forest to grow and mature and all that other stuff, right? So when you cut down an old growth forest for human purposes, for sustainability, for lumber, for whatever, you have a long wait until you get this wood again that you can use for. So it's not easy. You can't be cutting down big trees and lumber for lumber every 5 years. You have to wait until these old growth forests come back, unless the next bullet point here on slide 14 is, alternatively, the desired trees can be directly replanted and seeded in a plantation and recut when mature enough for timber. So what you can do, instead of cutting down the old growth forest and then waiting 750 years for another one, you can replant those trees. You can the seeded, right? Pre-seeded. So you can take the seeds from those trees and plant them on a plantation. And a plantation is just a big area where you can plant things, right? So you can do that. So you can keep in a sense, then you can keep the old growth forests uh, there, right? You can get them much faster now. They're not just going to pop back up. They're going to take a long time to grow, but it's not going to take that 750 to 1,000 years. And they say at least until they're mature enough for timber, right? So you're not going to let them grow to 200 feet again because that takes a long time, but you are going to grow them maybe instead of 750 years, maybe you're talking 10 years, right? Or 20 years. So that's a huge thing. You can have these huge tree plantations where you're constantly growing mature trees. Okay, it's sort of an interesting concept. Moving to slide 15. And you can see that map that shows you some things there, right? So it says present areas having tree coverage from 1992, I think it says. So that is where you can find most of the trees in the United States. And like I said, if you look in the top left in the Pacific Northwest and along California, Northern California, that's where you see those big, huge redwoods that we saw, like the president and stuff like that. All right, slide 15. Tree plantations are neither good nor bad in themselves, right? It depends on their scale, their aimed objective, and the type of plantations, as well as the natural and socioeconomic environment where they are implemented. What that means is they're not a bad thing, right? I mean, anytime you're planting a tree, that's good, right? And even if you are planting these trees to use them as lumber, at least you're it's kind of sounds like a bit of recycling there, right? So that would be good. It's almost like a wood cycle instead of a water cycle or a nitrogen cycle. You're actually growing trees, using them, growing trees, using them, right? We do that with Christmas trees and stuff like that too. There's Christmas tree plantations that grow Christmas trees, and then as they become mature, you can cut them down and bring them home. So when you look at the map there, you can look through the map and look at the key, and it shows you interesting areas. The tree plantations, like I said, not good or bad. It just depends on what their scale is, right? Are they impeding on anything else? So the one thing you need is you need a lot of area to do this, right? So do you have to clear cut young forests, right? Do you have to displace animals? Do you have to change environments and ecosystems to get enough room to be replanting these mature trees, right? So anytime you need a lot of space, that comes with a price, right? Now we can't live there. Now other animals might be displaced and blah, 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 right? So you have to think about that. So that's the natural and socioeconomic. Again, if we can't farm that land because we're growing trees on it, that could become an economic thing and a financial thing, right? I'd rather use that land to grow corn every year so I can make money, but we have to wait and let it sit there for 50 years and grow wood on it. Right? So is it financially sound, right? And also, the environment where they're implemented, like I said, that's important too. So moving to slide 16. There is a big problem with tree plantations. Now, again, they're not good or bad, but what a lot of places typically do is they will use a handful of seeds, right? So there's not a lot of genetic diversity. There is not a lot of biodiversity in these tree plantations. So you look at, I think that second bullet point, it says there are thousands of hectares, right? Huge amounts of lands. Remember hectare with the couple of soccer fields big, right? Imagine thousands of hectares, right? In Chile, South America, Brazil, Indonesia, right? So these are all tree plantations. These are all where they've replanted these kind of trees that they need for lumber, right? So that's a great thing in itself. They're replanted and they're sort of farming trees, which is cool. But problem is they're only using a handful of different seeds. There's no biodiversity in these big, huge thousands and thousands of hectares. No biodiversity. They are monoculture. We've heard all these words in the last week and a half. So it's a monoculture, and that's a problem. And we know why that's a problem. And I did a video outside talking about why that's a problem, right? Because if a pest or disease infiltrates that forest, there's no biodiversity. That means that all of those trees are going to be affected. So typically, what that means really is that you can have one pest come in and just decimate the whole area, or a disease that kills the pine trees that you're growing, or the eucalyptus trees that you're growing, right? And all of a sudden, this disease just spreads throughout the whole forest over a number of years, and there's nothing you can do because there's no biodiversity, right? So all these trees are susceptible to the same problems, and that is the biggest problem with tree plantations. It's almost like, a bunch of clones, and if you take one out, you have the ability to take all the other ones out. So they're a good thing because we're trying to grow wood and recycle it and blah, 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 recycle it in a way for lumber and for human usage, but we could make it a little more biodiverse. Slide 17 is guided practice. Okay, so what you guys are doing. So today, right, you're watching those two videos in the very beginning by the objectives, and you have a couple of links to set up throughout in the speaker notes. You have to link the maps, like I said, up in those other slides, right? In slide 17, there is a link. This link is a YouTube video. It is called Survivors of the Firestorm. It's by Nature. You are going to watch first 16 minutes. All right, so the first 16 minutes or so until you get enough information to answer the question on the next slide. So the question on the next slide says, given the severity of Black Saturday, which you have no idea what that is because you didn't watch the video yet, shown in the video, what advantages do you think the mixed old growth forest will display over what would have occurred with a plantation or monoculture? Okay, so you're watching that 16-minute video and you're giving me a good, solid answer. Right in the speaker notes if you like, that's fine. Giving me a good, solid answer, not just don't give me a one sentence or give me a couple sentences, give me something good. And that is the last slide, slide 18, right? So that's all you got going on today. Hopefully you kind of understand what an old growth forest is. You see the timeline of an old growth forest. You see why old growth wood is good. It's good for lumber. You can make a lot of it. It's very hard. It's very good for construction. You will watch the video on old growth forests, so that will help solidify what they look like, what they mean. Check out a couple maps so you know where they are located, which we've already alluded to when we talked about South America and stuff like that. And then you are going to watch this video for 16 minutes, and you are going to give me a nice solid answer on slide 18. That is really it for old growth. We will, I think this next section, just to give you a heads up, I think we have 3 slideshows, 3 slide presentations, and then another quiz. So the other quiz would be coming up towards the end of next week. So we will do this one, and then we'll do, I think it's 3. We'll do 3 slideshows and have another quiz. So we're going to try to do 3 slideshows and a quiz, 4 slideshows and a quiz, and then it'll culminate in those unit exams that you've been taking, which have a mixture of questions from all of those quizzes. So easy enough, all right? But I'm having you write a little more because multiple choice is lame. I want to show that you guys are thinking and typing. These questions and answers should always be from your own mind and your own fingers. I understand that you have the power of the internet in your grasp right now, and that is a great thing to have, but I don't want you just copying and pasting, because that way you're not typing, you're not thinking, you're not saying it, and you're not going to remember it. And I need you to remember this stuff. All right, that's all I really have to say. I hope you guys are good. I will come back later because I know that many of you, especially my third period, don't really clock on live, but I will come on in the end of the day and make sure that there were plenty of views, or I'll start yelling and screaming at you. I hope you guys are being safe and relaxing and trying to, do stuff to keep the boredom away. I hope everybody that you know is staying safe. Continue to do what we're doing. Right? I mean, I was outside yesterday and I was like, oh my God, I just want to go somewhere. And I knew I couldn't, So we just got to keep being this diligent about not going anywhere. And, do what we got to do. But if you need anything, I'm here all day. I'm going to be here till 3:30 at least. I'll check a couple times tonight too. I'm going to start grading the quizzes. If you have any questions about anything, please get in touch with me via private message. Okay, bye.